Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mindset Over Matter. I'm your host, Gabby Gooding, and today I am so pleased to have my very own mom as a guest on the show. Many times during our day-to-day conversations, we'll say something like, "Oh, I wish we'd recorded this," because we get into some really great topics and even, I would say, healthy debates on certain things. So here we are today, actually recording one. So thank you so much for joining today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited. Every conversation with you is amazing because you have a great mind and I love our conversation. So let's just go with the flow and see what comes out of it.
Awesome. No, I love that. So just before we start, before we get going, for anyone who doesn't know, my mom has a very interesting immigration story, which I'll leave to her to explain in her own words. But in a nutshell, she came to Canada from Poland, not directly, but made it here, attended university here, and went on to have a very fruitful teaching career for over 25 years now, I think, and maybe thinking about retirement soon. So just a little bit of context because you might share some experiences about that along the way. And I just have to say that I've had the absolute pleasure of watching you grow and transform over the years. The last 28 years anyway, which is partly why I thought you would be such a great person to speak to on the topic of mindset and identity. I know we kind of got talking about this concept of identity yesterday as well, which is a pretty complex topic. But I know when I called you yesterday, my first question that I asked you, just because, again, it was one of those situations, is what does mindset mean to you? So why don't we start there?
Yes, that's great. And thank you so much for this amazing introduction. And, I did smile because the way you said that, you have watched me grow, it's something that should come from the mother towards the child typically. And I'm just thrilled that these words came from you because we reach a point at a certain time of our parenthood where we are, at least between mother and daughter, where we become like sisters. And I do confide in you a lot of times. And if you have seen my growth, I'm thrilled and I'm thankful. So that's what I wanted to say, first of all. But, pondering the concept of mindset, I actually went into the semantics of the word. So the word is mind set. Mm-hmm. And I asked myself, what is your mind set to doing? Your mind is set to thinking, but in my understanding of the concept, it's also to verbalizing, and speaking your truth, and ultimately to verbalizing your thoughts and speaking your truth, because only when we speak our truth do we grow and do we share. We're not staying in our little world, but we expand and we share with others, which leads me on to communication and how communication is important to humanity, because we're all one. And sometimes, it branches off. And I'm curious as to where this conversation is going to take us, but it branches off onto so many things. And sometimes I do have to say that I envision humanity standing in one big circle and holding hands. And what is the energy that we're projecting? What is the mindset energy? It all is one thing ultimately. And what is it that we're projecting onto others, onto ourselves, first of all, which is connected to self-love and growth, and onto others to make them grow in turn as we learn from them and grow because of their mere existence and what they what their mindset is, what their thoughts are that are verbalized to us.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much for even trying to tackle that definition of mindset. I think you did an excellent job, and I think even just the fact that it maybe took you in some different directions, and it's almost hard to contain what mindset is to just a narrow area, because it applies to everything. And that is why I'm excited about my podcast in general. And when people ask me, well, what topics do you cover, or what types of guests do you have, it can really be anything. Like, the point is to have people from all different industries and walks of life and everything, because mindset is something that is just present and is highly influential on every single person. So there's really no limit, and it can mean a lot of different things to different people. But I love that you went into the semantics of it, because must be a genetic love for semantics, because I did the same thing. When I was coming up with the title for my podcast, I was thinking about this word mindset, and I also broke it down into mind and set. But it's interesting that instead of focusing on the mind part, I actually focused a little bit on the set part. And it actually doesn't sit well with me that that word is in there, because I don't think, well, let me put it this way. I think that a lot of people are set in the way that they see things, their attitudes, their opinions, their views on things in life, which is what mindset is. But I would prefer to call it something like mind flex, because I think there should be a little bit of flexibility in our opinions, our attitudes, and our views on things, especially when we consider what you said about communication, because communication also includes listening and learning from each other, which you mentioned too. So how can I have my mind be set and never change if I am truly going to be communicating with people and listening and growing together in some ways and growing separately in some ways? So I think there should be a little bit of give and take, and there should be growth, and there should be change in our mind. And so I don't love
Absolutely.
that it's mindset, but I think that it ends up being the way that it is for most people. So
absolutely. And all of us, we each have our understanding of the word set. And what I thought of, actually, I absolutely agree with what you said, because yes, we are set in our ways. But what I thought of specifically was start line, ready, set, go. That's what I thought of for a second. So whatever we have learned, pertaining to growth in our lives, ready, set, go, as in verbalizing it to other people. That's what I thought of.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. And you could even say ready, set, grow, because if you're
I love it. I love it. You know how much I am all about growth. So absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad we kind of got on the topic of growth, because and I'll come at this from a slightly different angle to start, because we talked about identity and this concept yesterday, which is a very complex topic. But we'll just maybe start with a very basic question, which I think I know the answer to, but it'll be a good place to start. Do you feel like you have the same identity as you did when you were, let's say, 18 years old?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But, now with this mindset of this earth being classroom, school, where we come to grow, we take upon ourselves so many experiences, and we're never the same. And what do they say? That we change every 7 years? I don't know if I agree with that. I think we grow every single year. And so I think if I'm given 80 years of this life, or 90 or 100 or whatever amount, I will still be growing on my deathbed, or transition, or however we want to, conceptualize that. We always grow, because different experiences and different people come into our lives. And so we grow. But back to when I was 18, okay. So I grew up in Poland, and I left Poland when I was 21. And, funny thing was that, we see all the immigrants coming from war zones and situations that are really, really challenging. That was not my journey at all. We can empathize with those situations. My situation was very, very different. I had a set life in Poland, which kind of, I won't use the word bored me, but I thought to myself, is that it? It's fantastic. It's great. But I was 18 and open to just various experiences. And so an opportunity came to me to leave Poland, but my life was pretty good. I grew up in a city that was very oriented on culture, Krakow, theater, performances on the street, city that really invests a lot of money and effort into culture. And that's all I knew. And I thrived on it, it seemed. And I unfortunately didn't get into university because we have to take entrance exams that are hard. At that time, it was a little bit corrupted, but hey, maybe I wasn't that great. I wanted to study English, and maybe my English was certainly what it is today. So I did not get into university, but everything happens for a reason. So I went to a hotel management and tourism school for 2 years. And in the second year of that school, our principal walks into our classroom and says, there is this, the group of Norwegians who are coming into our city to learn about Krakow and visiting, who would like to show them around. And I was back then very brave and very open. And of course, I was the first one that put up my hand. And long story short, I ended up showing them around for 3 days. And on the fourth day, it was amazing. I took them to some student clubs where they went on stage and they were singing, and I sang for them. I was big on singing and playing the piano at that time, and just shared, my story and the story of my city and all that. On the fourth day, the principal, Johannes Bjerke, his name was, says to me, well, we have this scholarship and we would like to offer you the scholarship for 1 year to come to our school. And my initial reaction was, no, my life is set here. And, I'm envisioning going to university and trying again. And if I get in, I would love to stay here. But he said, well, it would be a shame if you couldn't take it, but we really hope that you will reconsider. So I was puzzled. And no one really wanted to advise me, because people were saying, well, we love you here and we don't want you to go, but that's an opportunity for growth for you. So it is in your heart. And I was left with, because as an 18-year-old or 21, I was 21 at that time, but anyway, as a young person, you're not really used to discernment and being able to decide for yourself. So I was turning to other people, but this actually was, I'm grateful for that experience, was my very first moment when I had to go inward and decide what it is. And that was really a painful experience because I could not decide. Again, long story short, I ended up leaving Poland. Times were difficult when it comes to politics, and it was just very difficult to leave Poland. The system was changing very, very slowly. It was already after the martial law, but they were not open to people leaving. So I had to ask for a private invitation from Johannes and his wife for 2 weeks. And I just went to the police station in Norway and I prolonged my stay. I got a student visa, but that unfortunately closed the doors for me to come back to Poland and to have the dream or one option, one path of my life of going and doing university and what it is that I had envisioned there. So my life took me on a different path very, very abruptly and suddenly. And I found myself on an island from a big city, with the life that I had described on an island with 3,000 people and a lot of beautiful nature that I couldn't understand at first. And now I'm all about nature. And I couldn't live without nature and what it does. It's a 5D. It just does miracles for our soul, for us. But back then, I didn't know any better. So I thought, okay, well, there's a mountain, there's a fjord. Okay, well, mountain is a mountain, fjord is a fjord. Okay, what else do you have? And I went through a cultural shock where I was initially, I would even say depressed because I lost a lot of weight. I couldn't eat. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do to my life? And I think it's a very important stage. And if there's any message that I have, is do not be afraid of falling down and of change and of growth, because it's all about mindset. Yes. Where are you going to, you can only go up from there. First of all, are you going to, unless you're going to just stay there and feel sorry for yourself and whine and complain, poor baby, and, life is doing it to me. No, life is not doing it to you. Life is doing it for you. I didn't know it then. I can verbalize it now, but it took me about 2-3 months. I started to pick myself up. Actually, it took me 2 weeks with the determination that I had in me, even with that depressive kind of state initially, because I arrived in November. And soon after that, it was Christmas time. So all the students from the residence where I was at or in left home, and I was by myself. I was shown where the kitchen was, and basically just by myself. It was a little scary for a young girl. And but I decided to invest this time into learning Norwegian, which turned out to add 2 books, one for beginners and one advanced. And I went through both of those books and I memorized all the vocabulary, all the grammatical concepts. And, in theory, I knew Norwegian, a lot of Norwegian to get by. I didn't have that practice where when you start practicing, then you have to get used to how people say it and, reacting and whatever. I didn't have that, but at least I had that base. So that's how I invested my time. And something happened within the first 2 or 3 months that a miracle happened, where I think it's self-defense, or at least for a determined person that I was, because I thought, well, what do? I can't go back to Poland. I better, pick myself up. So with this, all of a sudden there was a breakthrough, and I started noticing, the nicer, the more beautiful aspects of life, and observing Norwegians and their culture, what they're all about, and learning. And I want to mention that I think it's important in any situation of change to always have a plan B, right? Because you can't feel stuck. Stuck energy is not moving energy. So I knew it intuitively somehow. And so I thought, well, in the worst case, I can always go to Poland, or I can go somewhere else if I don't like it here. But for now, let's relax. And that relaxed me. That plan B kind of thinking relaxed me to the point where I was able to start enjoying it and observing and learning about their culture, their language, how they are, their ways of being, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the initial.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. So I have a couple of follow-up questions. So if you take yourself back to the moment when you were you went for 2 weeks on their personal invitation, and then you went to the police station and you extended your stay. If we zero in on that moment, that's fascinating to me, because you knew that by doing that, you couldn't go back.
Closed, yes.
Closed door, like you closed your own door in a way. You also opened your own door, and you may not have realized it, but I'm just so curious, how did you know that was the right thing to do? Like, that is a huge door to close for yourself, especially maybe knowing that, or not knowing exactly what the next steps are going to be. So did you feel like did you do a pros and cons list in your mind? Was it trusting your gut? What do you remember what that experience was like and how you made
That's
that
an
decision?
interesting question. I don't think I remember. I think I had already made up my mind. It took me a long time. I was never at ease with decisions, and especially with large decisions like this. Now here I am, having already made up my mind, and I decided to go with it, to go with the change that was scary, but to do something about it, because what are thoughts of change if we don't put action in it, if we don't align it with action? So I had to show some action on my part, meaning that I accept it, I embrace it, and I move forward with it.
Right. Yeah. No,
We're changing in Poland anyway, and no one knew. It's just a kind of the last 3 years, so many things are changing, right? Sometimes we go through history periods or just current situations where so many things are moving. It's where life is always in motion, and I didn't know, and I was young, and I thought, okay, well, I closed that door, but it can't be like this forever. And actually, later on, several months later, so I arrived in November, and in the month of June, I had finished school, and and I went to work at a hotel where there were like 14 different nationalities. People came from like all over the world, and it was amazing. And I worked there as a waitress, and my mom came to visit me because I was not allowed to go to Poland. And she said, I found out that you can have this consular passport. It was called paszport konsularny in Polish, consular passport. What is that? What is that? Our passports were blue. This one is red. What is it? What does it mean? It meant, so she said to me, go to the embassy. Let's go together, Polish embassy in Oslo, and let's apply for that passport for you so you can come back to Poland. There's always a way. Yeah, it's amazing how universe is just unfolding for you when you have taken action, when you have decided something, you start moving forward. It's like, wow, oh, I didn't know that existed. What a consular passport was at that time, it's not in existence anymore, but it was issued for people who permanently lived abroad and not in Poland. But unfortunately, it rid me of all rights to any Polish apartment or to any basically they considered me as, so you were born in Poland, so what? But you don't live here, you're not one of us back then. But with that passport, at least I was able to come back and visit, several times before the system changed completely. And now it's not like that, obviously.
Yeah, no, what you said was, I think, very on point about when you take action, the universe, unfolds and gives you opportunities. I think there are different ways of wording that. So for anyone who that maybe that language doesn't resonate with about the universe and whatever, I think there's, from a psychological perspective that's been backed by science and proof and whatever you choose to trust, that if the things that you focus on are what you're going to notice more of. So if you have taken action or you commit to focusing on one thing, then you're going to see more of that. So a common example, two common examples that I can share are, for instance, when you go to buy a new car, let's say it's a brand new type of make and model car that you've never driven before. As soon as you buy it and now it's familiar to you and you're thinking about it, now you notice it on the road all the time. So other people's ones that are the same, right? Because now it's drawn a little bit closer into your main focus.
It's in your space.
It's in your space. Yeah, exactly. Another one is, I know Tony Robbins does this exercise in his conferences. He'll say, if I told you to not think about a green elephant, what's the first thing that you envisioned or pictured in your mind?
Green elephant.
Exactly. So the point there is that whether it's positive or negative or neutral, the things that you keep top of mind within your realm of focus is what you're going to notice more of. And so even with opportunities too, right? That same opportunity about the passport could have already existed, but because you never needed it, you never noticed it. And so
absolutely,
that's where
absolutely.
the
And what
mindset comes in too, right? You can kind of control what you choose to focus on, and then things seem to open up, and it feels like magic, but it's not necessarily magic. It feels that way, but
yes,
so
that's great insight, as always, Gabriella. That's great insight, and I would add onto it that if you put yourself in the position of victimhood, also at that time, poor baby. Oh, things happened to you. Oh, you got depressed for a while. Oh, you don't have your city. You can't go to the theater. That's not going to work. What do you have instead? Look at the mountains, learn about nature, look at the fjords, learn about the culture. It's so amazing. And the second thing that I wanted to add to it was that whatever you focus, kind of along the same way of thinking as you had, whatever you focus your thoughts grows.
will grow. Yeah.
Our thoughts become our words, and our words become our actions, and our actions become our reality. So I kind of put the Poland thing, university life there on pause. Let's see what we have here, and let's move with that, and let's grow. And I did it intuitively. I didn't have the theory behind it, but I did it intuitively, as a survival, but also that survival became acceptance, and that acceptance became what stemmed from it was curiosity. And then this joyous state, I'm here, I'm free, I'm a human being that is going to explore. And I'm not saying that life is easy. It was not easy. There was a certain moment where I didn't have money at all. So finances, I imagine yourself in a different country and you don't have money. And at first I had that scholarship, then I made some money as a waitress. I worked very hard, different shifts that took me through school, which was teacher's college, but I did it backwards because I did teacher's college without having that base of university, which came later in Canada. But I had to go through it. As it turned out, I had gone through 2 years of the teacher's college, making my own living, and it was hard at a certain point of time. I'm not saying that it's all nice and rosy, right? Like, it's life is good and bad. We live in duality, but we learn, we fall down, and then we pick ourselves up and we go even higher. So there was a situation, there was a moment where I had to rely on other people. My friend came from Poland. She was a choreographer and dancer, and she knew about, folk dances. So we opened this group where a friend, Norwegian friend, played the accordion. I talked about history, and she taught how to dance. And we had 20 couples that, did this course with us, and that took us through. It wasn't a lot of money, but it took us through few months. And then one of the guys, single guy, a little bit older than us, in his 30s, late 30s, I would say, had absolutely no other ideas than helping, because Norwegians are beautiful people of beautiful heart of gold, and they love to help. And he said to, actually, there were 3 of us, one Norwegian guy as well. And he said, well, why don't you come, all 3 of you, and live with me? And he, poor thing, he moved to the attic. He gave us bedrooms, and it just is amazing. I'm grateful to this day for his help, and that took me through a few months. And you couldn't apply for a Norwegian visa, nor did I even entertain that idea for some other reasons. So I was ready to travel further, to explore the world further. But what I'm trying to say is that when you open up and you start doing something, that universe is always backing you up and will always come up with solutions, examples. People are amazing. We are surrounded with so many amazing and helpful and pure people, pure of heart, that will extend a helping hand to us if we need to. I wasn't comfortable with it because it was always, me, and I always wanted to rely on myself. But there are situations like that, and I had to go through it. And if I can share that energy with others, or actually in life later on in Canada, I did help a lot of people. Kind of that, always comes back to you, and you always return it. Yeah, it's just it works like that, right?
Yeah.
We're all we can't forget that we are our own individual people, but we also live in community. We're humanity, and we live with each other, and we influence and impact each other all the time, and we help each other. And whatever you put in, it comes back to you as well.
Yeah, I think it's a tough lesson to learn for some people, that it's okay to depend on other people, even just temporarily, for help. But actually, this came up in a recent conversation I had with another guest of mine, and he said that he had this passion to start a charity that was very important to him, but he had no idea about the logistics of it. He knew his vision, but he didn't know how to register a business. He didn't know how to set up a website. He didn't know, and so he ended up having to rely on people to help with those parts. And he said that was uncomfortable for him too. But he shared some statistics, and I'll get all the numbers wrong, but the gist of it is that people were surveyed to ask, if you needed help, would you be comfortable, or sorry, I'll say it the other way. If somebody, one of your friends or somebody in your network needed some help, would you be willing to help them? Is that something that you'd be willing to do? And something like 90 or 95% of people said, yes, absolutely, I would help, just, with no expectation in return. And
I know where you're getting with this.
But then the other way,
would you be able to accept? Yeah.
It was something like, it was reverse almost, right? Where maybe 10% of people, or maybe, I don't know, maybe that's too low. But the point is that we think that we can't ask for help, or that people aren't willing to help. And yet we are all those people that are willing to help. And so, the math doesn't add up there. But I also really like what you said about your kind of giving, not necessarily giving up, but moving past your initial goals of applying again to university in Poland, and following that path. And I think it's just important to note that we should have some flexibility as well. Like, there's a balance between committing to your goal that you have, and also being flexible and being open to new opportunities, or maybe new ways to achieve your goal, right? Even if your goal stayed the same, maybe there's a different path to the goal that might be better. And I think I'm guilty of having been this way too, that I get so almost attached, like toxically attached, I would say, to my
fixated
path. Yeah, exactly. To my goal, and to the way that my plan, basically, that I can't let go of it, because I decided and I made up my mind that that's the way I'm going to do it. And that's hurt me in the past, because I have had people maybe say, hey, maybe there's this way or that way. And I would say, no, like, I'm, blinders on, one path, and that's it. And that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. So not that you worded it that way, but your example just kind of made me think of that it's important to have a little bit of flexibility, and strike a balance between commitment and also openness, I guess, to different opportunities.
I have to compliment you, because it's great to have goals. You have achieved some amazing goals, Harvard, schools, all of that. And that has taken a lot of hard work on your part. And as for what you said, you're very flexible. It's something that we are learning our whole life. And just the fact alone that you started this podcast, and you're meeting so many people, you're interacting with them, and you're learning continuously, which life is all about. So really, congratulations on that. And that to me shows great level of flexibility.
Thank you.
Also, it's all about adjusting, right? And what you said is just gold. It's pure gold, because life is all about being flexible. And so we often have something that we envision initially. For example, yes, from home, my both parents were university educated, and so I had that ingrained in me. You have to go higher than your parents. So what is higher? Yes, I have my master's degree. I don't know, the master's degree was kind of incorporated into that university education, so that not in that sense, because they did 5 years and it was kind of part of how university worked in Poland. But in my mind back then, I was kind of higher. I accomplished this. Not that I want to be better than anyone, but when something is ingrained in you, right, you just kind of strive to do it initially without thinking, because I got to teach children in Canada, and that's I always say there's a lot of trust on the part of parents to put a child with one person mainly for 1 year. And I got to do it so many times, 27 years now. And that was my accomplishment. But back to what I was saying before, what I had ingrained in me, you have to do university, you have to get higher, on a higher level. And that was not happening. It kind of was like a pause, but you can see it. It's a question of perception, because do you see it as a pause, Norway pause, or Norway growth, expansion? And that university came later on. So it's always that the goal is always at the back of your mind. But if you go this way and you're not meeting any obstacles, fantastic. Congratulations, beautiful. But is life like that really? I don't think so. I don't know how many people can say, I had this goal at the age of 18, now I met this goal and life is great. I do barbecues every weekend and, don't ask anything of me because I'm set in my ways. I don't think it happens like that. I think that you said you're here, you set a goal that's there, and you envision a clear path, but a real path to that goal is this. And then it does that all the time, right? So you get there, but you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And sometimes you change it completely. Sometimes you drop it. If it's toxic, any toxic situation that prevents your growth and keeps you stuck, no, thank you. I'm not here for that. I'm here to learn not to be a victim of any sort of toxicity. So you exit that situation and you change your path. So what if it was initially aligned with some sort of a goal that you had? That was you. People change. That was you a long time ago. Change. And now let's go try different paths, because universe offers so many paths. There's so much we can do out there. And me retiring next year, I already have a million ideas of what I can do with my life. So
well, I think that if the way I see it anyway, if you do set yourself a goal and you accomplish it quickly and easily with no challenges or anything along the way, I actually would argue that your goal was not bold enough,
challenging enough.
Yeah, right. So that's one thing. But the other thing that you got me thinking about just now is you used the word toxic, and also speaking about your parents encouraging you to pursue a certain goal, and it's always in the back of your mind. And so it just makes me think that a good place to start would be to think about what we consider success and why. What are our goals and why? Who told us to have that goal? Did it come from us? Did it come from our parents? Did it come from, just social norms and expectations? And then based on that, and what first the decision should be, is this aligned with me or not truly? And learning to listen to your intuition and to yourself and what your actual goals are, because even if you achieve this goal that on paper seems amazing, you get your master's, your PhD, whatever the job is that your parents or whoever wanted you to get, if you're not in alignment with what your actual purpose is, you're never going to feel fully like you're living a life of success or of meaning, I think. So that's the first part. And then based on that, I think we're able to have a new understanding of what situations are toxic for us. because I think this word toxic gets thrown around a lot. And I think that it sounds very extreme, which sometimes it is. But I also think that you can think of a toxic goal or a toxic situation as something that prevents you from living your true authentic life, or a life of meaning and purpose, or that is getting in
I
the
was going to
way
say that something's just as simple as prevents your growth,
that
keeps you
prevents
stuck.
your growth. Exactly. So
Keeps you
that is
If
really
any situation keeps you stuck and prevents your growth on a personal level, on the professional level, that is toxic to you. And so my
exactly.
suggestion is get out and change, revisit the idea of setting different goals,
Yeah. No,
pursuing.
absolutely. And that's where that flexibility comes in. So it really is an art, I think, because it takes all of these, people ask, well, what's the secret to success or whatever? There is no, I don't think, one secret, but it is really, maybe the secret is to figuring out this art of tying all these things together, right? Listening to ourselves, being in alignment, removing ourselves from toxicity and into situations and opportunities of growth and connection. Like there are so
Yes.
many of these concepts that are not talked about enough, I don't think. And if they are, what bothers me is, so far in my career, it seems like you can either be successful in your career and pursue your goals, or you are into spirituality and taking care of your body, your health, your mental health. It's always an either or, right? So
The two are not aligned very well, right?
exactly. And it seems to me, why can't they be connected? Like it's okay to be a person of, you can be a banker, an accountant, you can have some, a hard skill job,
Yes.
but also be a soft spirited person who's not tough on themselves, in the sense that they're not going to take care of themselves. Like that's why
Yeah.
is that the cool thing to do, is to not take care
Something
of themselves.
comes to mind that we didn't necessarily discuss yesterday, or I don't know if we have discussed that before, but you know how sometimes you watch videos, so I call that not really watching, but listening, because I may be in the kitchen doing something. And so it finishes and it goes to the next and the next one. And so all of a sudden, and I believe that nothing happens for an accident as an accident. And so this was a message for me. There is this millionaire in Poland, in Krakow, in my city, out of all places. And he has Polish roots, a young guy, probably your age, a little bit older. And he grew up in the States, and he came to Krakow with all this money and decided to open a business. And he takes you through, that place, that office. That's, I don't know. It's right downtown, and I think he bought several huge apartments where you can literally, drive a car, and it's like almost like you feel like on the highway when it's all open up. It's huge, huge space. He turned it into an office, however, a working area for his employees. And I was amazed. It was a couple of years ago when I saw that. I don't know what his name is because I'm bad with names, but he's there, and all his employees are so very happy because they come to work. It doesn't feel like work at all. He cares about everything is there. The spirituality is definitely there, and needs for the body, pertaining to like a little gym, a little area where they can sleep, a little area where they can, if there are mothers that are single mothers or need to bring their children, there's somebody to look after their children, where they can rest, where they can take a nap, where they can meditate. Everything is there. And I thought this was amazing. It doesn't feel like work. How many times do we go to work and we're exhausted? We come back, we give, and I say, if this is our 100% of energy that we have at our disposal for one day, we're so depleted. We come home and there is barely any 10%, and then they tell you, drink your water, but you don't have time to drink your water because you're so busy at work. They tell you exercise. Now you're so depleted in energy that you barely can even think of it. All you want to do is to come home and have a nap, or maybe snuggle with your cat, or so, and it's not balanced. Why does it have to be that way? And so I think these times, with the last 3 years of growth that we have done and revolution in thinking, ideas, how we approach things, I think times are changing for the better now, and we understand that work should not be like that, depleting you to that extent.
Yeah.
And work should work smarter, work not harder, which we had been told, another kind of programming for years, but work smarter in the sense of, like
Yeah.
you're doing with your podcast, and hopefully that will grow, and you find pleasure, that those conversations are enriching and building, and you get the sense of excitement. You're powered up, not depleted at the end of it.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point. And I think the problem with those modern work spaces is that they are probably costly. I mean, I would probably argue that the cost of not taking care of your employees is higher than, investing in these types of things. But a lot of companies are not prepared to do that. But the other part of it, which you finished on, which I love, is that you don't necessarily have to rely on your work, even though we spend a huge chunk of our days there, to find sources of re-energizing for us, especially on a what I would call like a spirit level. To your point, I love what I do at work, but there's very limited opportunity for me to have engaging conversations like this with people where I'm learning about other industries, right? I'm very much just tied up in one industry, and that's all we think about and talk about all day long. Mm-hmm. Fine. But the fact that I'm doing this now outside of work, I find that yesterday, for instance, I was exhausted. I don't know what got into me. I think maybe I overbooked myself a little bit with fun activities on the weekend and during the week. So my body was very, very tired, and I really could have slept the entire day right through into the evening. But I had 2 meetings with some future podcast guests. And I'm telling you, from being so exhausted, just having those conversations, I felt so re-energized that I could have kept going, and I probably could have gone to work. It was around like 7 p.m. And I thought, well, now I'm feeling great. I could go for a run. I could go to the gym. I can do that. So,
and it's also good for you too, because at all levels. And I recently had a talk with someone as well, and she told me her story, how she had a stroke at the age of early 40s from stress. How she picked herself up from it, how she's all about spirituality, health, and doing good things, balancing out her time. And it makes you think, oh my gosh, if ever you want to go into that area of victimhood, it makes you realize I'm not the only one. There are people out there that go through things. Let's look at how they have grown. And it really is an inspiration, right? It's amazing to connect with so many people on many different levels. And again, that brings me to a saying that we're not here alone. We live in in communities with humanity. We're part of everyone. We're all holding hands together. Let's help each other, learn from each other.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So I know we're getting close to running out of time, which is unfortunate because I feel like we could talk about this forever. But I'm just curious, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, but I'll ask it more formally as our last question here. If there was one life lesson that you wish you'd learned way earlier in your life, what would it be?
That's a very tough question.
I know.
Because I almost want to say there isn't, because life is a chain of experiences that you learn from, that your soul had signed up for, and it's a continuous growth. And without me, for example, living in Poland, surrounded by people who are very, very critical, like critical and at each other's throats a lot of times, not everyone, but outspoken, without me coming to Canada and going through a shock. Oh my gosh, I want to say this, but people just don't entertain a conversation further because you don't speak about this, you don't speak about, you just comply, sit, and maybe you can complain to your family and friends, to a small circle. I wouldn't be able to almost merge the two together. It's a life lesson. All those lessons that come later on, maybe at a later point in time. And I know that there is an age gap between us, and I don't think that there is one person who is in their early 20s or who knows it all. I don't know it all, but I'm just richer of some experiences that I have gone through, and now I believe that criticism or critical approach, healthy criticism, is so very important. I kind of found the way in between the two. Yes, you were critical there, but you just kind of verbalized everything. You're critical here, but you do it within your family. Let's just work on maybe communication, healthy communication, growth, our personal growth, and not to be afraid to exteriorize, to verbalize our thoughts, to learn from each other. And so word criticism has a very negative connotation to it, but let's just maybe share our life experiences and let's not feel threatened, but let's feel accepted. Is it possible? I'm asking myself at this point of time. I believe that it is. And learn from each other. But if you're too compliant or complacent, right? Then it prevents you from growth, and the community and people that you're surrounded with also are not going to grow, because everyone is going to close up, go home to their family and close friends and just complain there. But I think there's more to us. We should be able to verbalize what's in our hearts and how we have grown, and share our stories with others, and open up in that critical way, but without any negative connotation. Let's just question everything. Let's just question everything and grow and make it better and empower everybody else and learn from each other. That's a life lesson. I don't know how much more time we have, but I think all the experiences of mine were very important to get to this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is, be curious, think critically, don't be judgmental, try to stay neutral, right? Observe your experiences neutrally, and then also share with others so that we can learn from each other, and have support.
Observe, one of the words that you just used. I don't know if I expressed it well enough, but don't allow yourself ever to fall down and feel like a victim, but rather start observing and asking yourself with that critical mind, that it doesn't have a negative connotation, but a positive connotation. Ask yourself, what is life doing for me? Why am I here? How do I expand and grow from here? Where is it taking me? What paths have I not maybe yet tried that I may want to entertain and move towards, and see where it takes me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great life lesson. Hopefully, we can all learn that as soon as possible in all of our lifetimes. So we are out of time, but thank you so much for joining me. This is such a pleasure. I'm just happy that we can share one of these conversations that we have with my listeners, and maybe your listeners too, just because I have the pleasure of being able to chat like this with you anytime. But I think some great things come out of it. And thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences and your learnings, I guess, in life so far with everybody. So with that, we will end today's episode. For anybody listening, please feel free to like and share and comment and subscribe, especially subscribe, just so that we can make sure that we meet again on our next episode of Mindset Over Matter. So thank you again for joining us today. and take care, everybody.
Thank you so much. It was such a great pleasure. And I just have to say that I am so very proud of you too and what you're doing, because we're not doing whatever we're not doing just for ourselves and for our own growth, but for exchange of that beautiful communication with people.
Aw,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye.